Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we're breaking down the upcoming UFC Fight Night 57 event, which will take place live from Austin, Texas on November 22nd, featuring 6 main card fights. Pretty exciting matchups. We're really looking forward to them. All of my preliminary breakdowns will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. You can also check out all the predictions that my panel's posting, and of course, the bet packs available for $10. Coming off an okay, I went 7-4 at UFC 180. Should have been 8-3 as I felt the opening fight of the night, which was an early preliminary upset. Probably should have gone to Vera, the guy I picked. I felt he was far more dominant in that matchup, but I thought, a little home cooking recipe in favor of the local fighter kind of skewed that one. I did promote in my bet packs taking Fabricio Verdum to win by knockout. If you don't believe me, check out the latest review I posted. You'll see it was posted there. Paid $5.50 up to $5.50 on some websites. So certainly worth cashing in there. If you are considering betting on the card, certainly take a look at my purchasing the bet pack and see if you can get some momentum. I usually do very well in these fight night events. There's a lot of upset potential here. We'll see who I've gone with here. I got 6 fights, so let's get to the first one. We're with the lightweights to start this card off. We'll see Matt Wiman, 15-7-0, battling former Strikeforce competitor Isaac Vallie-Flagg with a record of 14 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw. Now, Wiman coming off a near 10-month layoff, so he's certainly going to have a little bit of ring rust coming into this matchup. For Vallie-Flagg, this is his first 2-fight losing streak of his career that he's currently enduring. Prior to that, he'd won 12 in a row, so certainly in a position he's not familiar with. Wyman's a ground-based fighter for the most part, but when he's striking, he can be very aggressive. Not a ton of power behind his punches, he just throws a lot of volume. For Vallie-Flagg, he's a brawler, throws a lot of different techniques at his opponents, can do a lot of damage in close at short range if he does get to put the pressure on his opponent. He likes to push the pace. That was ultimately what led to his victory over Yves Edwards, where he's able to tire him out and get the better of him on the feet and land the more frequent punches. Strikes landed per minute, 5.62 for Isaac Vallie-Flagg, which is a pretty high number, but he gives up almost 6 strikes per minute, so certainly defensively not that strong. Poor defense, like I said, too much offensive focus. He needs to step back, pick his shots, and make sure he's keeping a focus on defending shots just as much. He does have 5 wins by knockout, with the last coming in 2011, and his last fight prior joining Strikeforce was certainly after he made that leap to the next level of competition. Not as easy to knock guys out. Wiman has been KO'd twice, most recently by TJ Grant, which was his last fight, and he also was stopped by flying knee against Spencer Fisher earlier in his UFC career. I really like the way Wiman pushes a strong pace, 3.39 strikes landed per minute. He does allow 3, but obviously that's an exchange rate. He's winning. He's better defensively than Vallie-Flagg is on the feet. And opponents land up to 10% less of their strikes, so Wiman's much more conscientious when avoiding strikes than his opponent is here. The key to this matchup, though, will be the ground game. Vallie-Flagg, 3 of his 5 losses have come by submission. He defends 1 of every 2 takedown attempts, but we saw Elias Silverio put him on the mat 4 times. We saw Jay-Z Cavalcanti beat him up a couple times, put him down a couple times early in his Strikeforce career. When Yves Edwards elected to use a grappling-based approach, he took him down and really controlled, I believe it was the 2nd round, taking his back, had him in a lot of trouble. And when he opted to grapple with me, absolutely could, but for some reason he went away from that in the 3rd round and lost the fight. For Wiman, 5 of his wins have come by submission, which is pretty solid. 3 in the UFC, so he's capable of pulling off submissions this level. His last victory, which is only 1 fight ago, came over submission specialist Paul Sass, where he submitted him by armbar, which is pretty darn impressive. He averages 2.68 takedowns at a 40% clip. He landed 5 against Tennessee for his excellent takedown defense. Same with Sammy Stout, he took him down 4 times. He's landed at least 1 takedown in all but 2 of his career UFC victories, and both those fights, interestingly enough, ended in submission wins for Wiman, so certainly the ground is a key aspect of his game. The layoff is a bit of a concern, but I think he's going to revert back to his focus to try and get in that comfort zone, which is ground, put guys in the ground, overwhelm them. He did a nice job of overwhelming Cole Miller on the mat. He's a very good grappler. He just kept working away at him, took him down, kept hitting him with shots. I think we'll see something similar here, so my prediction is Matt Wiman to defeat Isaac Vallie-Flagg. I'll take Wiman by submission. We're down to the 125ers here in the flyweight division. His former title challenger, 2-time title challenger, number 2 ranked Joseph Benavidez, 20 wins and 4 defeats. Battles the 13th ranked fighter in the division. I don't know why Dustin Ortiz is still ranked 13th, as he's been pretty darn impressive. Nonetheless, Ortiz is 14-3-0. Now Benavidez so far comes into this matchup. He's 0-2 against Demetrius Johnson, the divisional champion. He's in that title contention purgatory. He's very similar to his teammate Uriah Faber, where he's probably not going to get another title shot for a very long time. He'll need to go on another impressive run and hope the champion gets upset and opens the door for Benavidez to step in. For Dustin Ortiz, so far he's 3-1 in the UFC with a very contestable split decision loss to former title contender John Moraga, and a fight he could easily be 4-0. I had Moraga in that matchup, but I felt Ortiz defeated him quite, not handily, but certainly did enough to get the victory. Both fighters in this matchup can compete standing or on the mat. So they're both very, very capable of fighting anywhere. Benavidez 9 wins by submission, Ortiz just 4, and neither guy has been submitted overall. Benavidez a very good ground fighter, there's no denying that, but I think he gets some of the credit, gets extra credit because of the camp he trains out of, which is alpha male. We see guys like Uriah Faber, Chad Mendes, now TJ Dillashaw, Danny Castillo, all very good ground fighters, but if you look at Benavidez' numbers besides his 9 submission wins, they're not all that strong. 1.22 takedowns at a 24% completion rate, so not overly impressive for a guy who's been in the WEC and now UFC as long as he has been. You have to go back all the way back to a fight against Ian Loveland, which I believe was his first UFC bout, fought at bantamweight where he landed 5 takedowns. That was the last time we saw him land more than a pair of takedowns in a fight. Defensively, 51% takedown defense, so pretty strong, pretty solid, not great, but commendable. Demetrius Johnson, in the one fight, took him down 5 times in the first meeting. Dominic Cruz took him down 6 times in each of their meetings. And we saw Timothy Elliott take him down 3 times. So up until Elliott did it, elite level guys were able to out-wrestle him. It was pretty impressive what Elliott was able to do. I thought Elliott was really working over and having a lot of success against Benavidez with his grappling prior to the submission landing. Only the elite have been able to take him down. That's something to keep in mind here, other than I said Timothy Elliott. Is Dustin Ortiz elite with his grappling? I don't know. Ortiz has a very strong wrestling and grappling game, good transitions, he's able to counter out of bad positions. But the thing is, you look at here, he's won a couple of very close fights where he was taken down several times and was able to counter out of those tough positions. He was taken down 5 times by both Ray Borg and Justin Scoggins, won both split decisions in those matchups. But, getting taken down that many times in a fight is not a good thing, especially against a very strong top position player like Joseph Benavidez. He had a lot of success against Moraga on the mat with transitions, but he was outworked on the feet, and that's something to keep in mind here. So it seems like he has to have both working for him to be really successful and to be a clear winner. And in this matchup, I don't think he's going to be able to out-grapple Benavidez. And he could outstrike him, but that's debatable. But the thing with Benavidez, he has real power, and that's the thing we've seen. He has improving striking technique, not as good as a lot of people like to build it up to be, but he has significant power that can back guys off. Ortiz is a tough out for anybody, and certainly Joe can't underestimate him. That's one thing to keep in mind. But the way in which Benavidez was able to back Ian McCall off with his strikes and out-grapple him for the most part, I thought was pretty impressive. I think we're going to see Benavidez score some serious takedowns, hold top position, land the more impactful strikes. He'll keep Ortiz backing up, will be very game. But my prediction is Joseph Benavidez to defeat Dustin Ortiz by decision. From the lightest fighters on the main card, and yes, main card, because we do have some lighter fighters on the prelims, we're all the way up now to the heavyweights as Jared the Big Show Rosholt, 11-1-0, battles Oleksiy the Boa Constrictor Oliynyk, who is an incredible 49-9-1. And coming to this Oliynyk 10-fight winning streak, including his debut. Rosholt's on a 7-fight winning streak, so guys both have impressive winning streaks. One of them will continue. And at heavyweight, all it takes is a good run, and you're right in that title conversation. Now, Rosholt, NCAA Division I wrestler, he's taking on a 4th-degree BJJ black belt and master of combat sambo, so 2 guys that have their foundation on the ground. Oliynyk is a submission machine. 40 of his 49 wins have come by submission, which is darn impressive. He submitted his Anthony Hamilton in his debut, also submissions over former UFC heavyweights Mirko Cro Cop and Jeff Munson. He has an incredible variety of submissions. Didn't show great technique, though, with his wrestling against Anthony Hamilton when he was trying to get him down. His hips were too high. If it would have gone on for a long period of time, he would have expended a lot of energy. The actual takedown that eventually led to the finish came because he was able to stun Hamilton on the feet with a couple heavy-handed strikes. Hamilton really didn't know what he was doing, and because he was kind of in a daze, and he was put on his back, and the rest is history. We saw Oliynyk jump right into that scarf hold headlock that I like. It's kind of interesting that he used to tap Mirko Cro Cop with as well, and eventually put the finish on him. For Jared Rosholt, not huge wrestling numbers so far. 1.67 takedowns at 45%, but 100% takedown defense, that's the number to focus on. Really great takedown defense, and it was a very big accomplishment in his last matchup, the way he was able to thwart the early attempts by a very big and very good grappler in Soa Palele. Couldn't take him down. He continued to try and put him down. Anytime he got close, Jared was able to pop back up. He showed exceptionally strong hips. And that's what happened with Soa in that matchup, is he expended a ton of energy trying to take him down, and eventually that was his undoing. Rosholt has 3 wins by submission. He's not a huge sub-threat, but he's very active with his ground and pound. He just keeps pattering away. Against Soa, he landed 148 strikes. They're not full blast strikes, but they do enough to really keep busy, not give up position because the referees stand up. And they do damage does pile up. I said do. Force, the big thing with him though is he does a good job of forcing his opponent to carry his weight. He uses that front headlock, likes to rotate to the back from the position, just keeps working and pounding away around the opponent, covering up. I would think he should be able to stifle the attempts of Oliynyk to take him down, and that's going to tire him out in the process, and the Ukrainian's going to have a lot of trouble to execute from there. The big question is, though, if Rosholt gets put on his back, how good is he? Wrestlers do not like being in that position, and that could really impact his ability to do much and make him submission liability, or submission defense will be questionable if he gets put in that position. So far, we haven't seen that. He has been KO'd, on the feet, on the feet, Oliynyk showed some power when he rocked Anthony Hamilton, coming forward with some big shots. His technique's lacking, but it certainly was effective in that matchup. He has been knocked out 4 times. Actually, 4 of his last 5 losses have come by knockouts, so certainly it's an area of vulnerability. For Rosholt, nothing fancy on the feet. His only loss came by knockout to fellow UFC heavyweight Derek Lewis, who obviously we know how hard he hits. He did have trouble with the speed of Walt Harris. That won't be the case here. Oliynyk is 8-9 in fights where he isn't able to get the submission victory, and I think he's not going to be in a position to use those submission skills. I think Rosholt survives the early storm and eventually grinds on him. So my prediction is Jared Rosholt to defeat Oleksiy Oliynyk by decision. Now we return to the flyweights. His number 11th ranked Brad One Punch Pickett, 25-9-0, takes on Chico, the King Camus, with a record of 14 wins and 5 defeats. Camus is making his flyweight debut, cutting down from bantamweight. For Pickett, this is his 3rd fight, 125 pounds, so he should continue to show improvement as far as his physical conditioning and ability to deal with the weight cut. Camus, keep in mind, because this is his first cut to 125, he could be using a diminished game plan to see how his body feels and how it responds after such a heavy weight cut. So that's something to keep in mind here. That could be the game plan from the onset. If the weight cut goes poorly, he may struggle even more so. Both guys are very capable strikers. Pickett, 7 wins by knockout. Obviously, his one-punch moniker gives you an idea how capable he is. We saw him stop Yves, which was pretty impressive. He has been KO'd once in his career, which was the 2nd fight of his career, so very early. He's got a long time with. He's got a very good chin, but it's not invincible as Hein Barao showed. He averages 3.15 strikes landed per minute, but gives up a whopping 4.49 strikes absorbed. And unless you're Roy Nelson, it's kind of shocking to see those numbers for a guy who's been competing against the elite of, especially the bantamweight division, and recently against Ian McCall, to give up those numbers and be relatively successful. He has been outlanded in 5 of his last 6 fights, and won 2 of them against Mike Easton and Yves, the previously mentioned. He struggled with the speed of Ian McCall, and even against Neil Seery in his divisional debut, he had a little bit of trouble there. He needs to cut off the cage and not chase, which he did a little bit too much of against Seery and certainly against McCall. He also needs to remain very technical and avoid brawling. He tends to lose his head a little bit and just stand there and throw and run guys down and try and knock them with one punch. Be technical, change levels, leg kicks, body shots, be diverse, don't be predictable. He has a good job of rolling with punches. I just said body shots, I mentioned that already, changes levels effectively with the strikes. Really goes after and looks to use them to set up headshots as well. But he counts on his chin holding up, and when it doesn't, that costs him. For Camus, he has a very solid striking game. He's a Rufus-trained striker, Duke Rufus-trained striker. Doesn't offer the volume that you would anticipate for a guy who's a boxing heavy. Just 1.67 strikes landed per minute versus 1.31 absorbed. And that has a lot to do with the way a lot of his fights have gone. We'll talk about that momentarily. He should have the speed advantage in this matchup, and if he fights smart and uses his movement, it's going to limit Pickett's ability to land impactful shots consistently. The key to Pickett's success, though, overall, I think in this matchup will be his wrestling. 5 of 7 UFC or WEC victories combined for 25 total takedowns. He had 2 fights where ended before he needed the takedown, but 5 of 7 wins, 25 takedowns. So that's 5 takedowns a fight. In his 5 losses in the same span, not a single takedown completed, which shows you how reliant this guy is on his wrestling being successful. He landed 10 takedowns way back in the WEC early in his career against Demetrius Johnson, the flyweight champion. Obviously, we've seen where they've progressed, but that's pretty darn impressive nonetheless. For Camus, he struggled with takedown-oriented fighters. Holdsworth took him down 4 times. Kung Ho Kang took him down multiple times and really controlled him. Dustin Kimura submitted him. Even Dustin Pag had him in some bad spots early on in their fight. He was able to steal a decision versus Kang, but didn't offer much off his back. As I mentioned, he was absolutely dominated by Holdsworth as well. Pickett has a very good submission game. 10 wins by submission. He's capable of working off his back. We saw him catch Paige. I believe it was a triangle. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's how he caught him. But he has been submitted 4 times, but I don't think Camus is that type of grappler that's really going to threaten Pickett on the mat. Pickett should have a physical advantage, should be the stronger fighter. He needs to incorporate his wrestling. That's the key to his success, not make it just a straight-up striking battle. Be diverse. first. Camus can win this matchup, but he uses speed, be technical, and defend the takedowns. Either way, I think Pickett gets the job done, so my prediction is Brad Pickett to defeat Chico Camus by decision. Now we jump into the UFC's lightweight division for our co-main event as the number 7th ranked Bobby King Green, 23-5-0, battles Edson Barboza, currently ranked at number 11. He's got a record of 14 wins and just 2 defeats. Now the winner of this gets another massive step up in competition, undeniable there. Barboza's already got a big step up when he took on Donald Cerrone and lost that matchup. He was doing well early on, but got tagged and submitted. Most of you probably saw that fight. Pretty entertaining fight for as long as it lasted. For Bobby Green, he took a very contestable decision win over former Strikeforce champion Josh Thompson, which a lot of people were not impressed with, but he did get the victory nonetheless. Physically, Barboza, 1 inch taller, 4 inch reach advantage. We talk about that because this is going to be, should be a striking battle, so the reach shows up, especially with the legs, which should be even a greater distance. Both are striking first fighters. Bobby Green will go to the ground more often, but we're going to talk about the this striking aspect first. Green's kind of a kickboxing-oriented fighter, where Barboza is that traditional, nasty Muay Thai striker. 9 wins by knockout for the Brazilian, solid combinations, but it's all about his kicking game. We saw him take out Evan Dunham with the body kick, stopped Rafael Alvaro, and I think Mike Lulo early on in his UFC career with leg kicks, wheel kick knockout of Terry Edom. The guy is very diverse and very dangerous. One leg kick, if he can act on one leg kick, it can absolutely change the course of the fight and take away a lot of his opponent's options as far as what they can do, take away their speed, their mobility, their ability to execute strikes. He can also open up opportunities by attacking low, injuring your opponent, forcing him to guard and protect that area. Suddenly he starts going high because the defense is not there. 4.14 strikes landed per minute for Barboza, so pretty solid work rate. For a good striker, though, he gives up a lot. 3.43. Not great striking defense. Tends to back up, a little bit too straight. Freezes up under pressure a little bit. And his chin is a major issue. Knocked out by Jamie Varner. Dropped with a jab from Donald Cerrone prior to getting submitted. And Danny Castillo nearly KO'd him as well. So there's some guys that have put some hurting on Barboza. Now, Green, 8 wins by knockout, but his last real KO came 13 fights ago, quite a long time ago. I'm not including, he has 13 wins. His last actual KO came against James Krause, which was the low blows, body kick debate that John McCarthy just said, I've had enough of. We're calling this fight incorrectly, but nonetheless, I'm not counting it as a real knockout. He's a boxing-based fighter, very good hand speed, able to use his head movement and footwork to avoid damage. Really utilizes that speed very effectively. He does have some very hard leg kicks, but not on Barboza's level by any stretch of the imagination. His exchange rate for a striking offense versus defense is much better. 4.56 strikes landed per minute versus 2.67. When he fought Josh Thompson, he did an excellent job of keeping the pressure on him, using that speed, avoiding shots, and landing some of his own. But there were times where he was way too inactive, and he was getting tagged with some big shots because he was standing right there. With Barboza, we have seen him struggle with pressure, though, and Green tends to, if he can push Barboza backwards, that takes his kicking game out of the equation. Green, though, tends to stand and trade, and that's something I don't, and land and evade strikes in that position. That's going to be difficult with the speed of Barboza's leg kicks. I think Green has to respect him much more than he's respected any opponent in the past. He can't dance, put on a showboat, do whatever it is he does. He has to be 100% focused, or else Barboza's going to cut him up. I could see Green trying to mix in his wrestling to try and throw Barboza off a bit, but Edson's very hard to take off his feet, and he will throw knee strikes to try and catch a guy coming in. Green has suffered one knockout loss early in his career. It came against Tim Means. It was a TKO due to retirement, and Means has exceptionally nasty Muay Thai as well, and not the level of Barboza, but still it shows you that style that Green might struggle with. Obviously, he's made leaps and bounds of improvement since then. But if you look at Bobby Green's current run, his victories have come over a lot of grapplers or lower-level guys. Grapplers like, Pat Healy and Jacob Volkman, two of his more recent victories, are noteworthy. They're not strikers that can hang with Green, not the way Barboza can. Thompson, in that fight against Green, could have won that matchup, but he pushed the pace, landed more impactful strikes, got after him, fought smarter. He didn't, and that's what ultimately cost him. I think, Barboza's beaten some pretty capable strikers in his current UFC run. Terry Edom, Ross Pearson, Anthony Njokuani. I think he'll have success here. If Green can land that big shot, it could hurt him or possibly finish him. I think Green stands in front of an opponent way too much and relies on that speed. He won't have that advantage, or not nearly as much. I think the leg kicks will start to pile up after a couple land, slow him down, make him an easier target. And my prediction is Edson Barboza to defeat Bobby Green. I'm going to take Barboza by TKO due to leg kicks. I think he'll land enough to put Green on the mat for good. We're now in our main event. This is an absolutely fantastic matchup. It's a featherweight bout with a lot of title implications. The former lightweight champion. Number 3 ranked Frankie the Answer Edgar, 16-4-1. Battles the number 2 ranked Cub Swanson with a record of 21 wins and just 5 defeats. Now the winner could be fighting in their next fight for the title. There could be a title fight that happens between that, as far as with Conor McGregor and what he's doing. He fights Dennis Siver, all up to the UFC and how they plan to stack things out. Both have already fought Jose Aldo and both have already lost to Jose Aldo. Cub Swanson, most of you probably know this, but shockingly some of you don't. Check the highlight out. Lost to Aldo prior to Aldo getting the title. It was back in the WEC. It was a KO loss, flying knee, just 8 seconds, pretty darn impressive. Both guys were climbing at the time, and Aldo obviously gets the push, and the rest is history. Frankie Edgar, though, much more recently facing Jose, title fight decision loss, which it was pretty evident that he lost that matchup, but yet he had a lot of success. And Chad Mendes is built on that, and we'll see if Aldo can continue his run based on some of the success that the guys have had against him. It seems like people might be catching up to him a little bit. Also, we've seen Edgar and Swanson fight another opponent both recently in Charles Oliveira. Cub winning by knockout, Edgar winning a pretty solid decision victory. Cub coming off his first 5-round fight. Keep that in mind here. For Frankie Edgar, he's been scheduled multiple times to go 5 rounds. He's gone 5 rounds 6 times, though. He's had some other fights that went long. In the BJ fight, the second Gray Maynard matchup, or sorry, I guess the third Gray Maynard matchup, didn't go the full distance. Nonetheless, he's got a lot more experience in 5-round matchups. Both guys are good strikers. Frankie has excellent movement, lateral movement, which is something he uses very effectively. Speed, technique, he's exceptionally hard to hit. 2.17 strikes absorbed per minute for Frankie Edgar, which is almost half a strike less over Cub Swanson. The output's about the same, so don't expect to see a lot of advantage in the offensive, but I think Edgar shows up with defensive skills and maybe gets a little bit of an edge there. What we see with Frankie, a lot of combos, good leg kicks, body to head. Not a ton of power, but of course we saw him stop Gray Maynard, which had the time seemed massive. Clearly it's not nearly as big a deal with his chin going. Also taking out BJ Penn as well. Swanson, excellent boxing, relies on his speed though. Lots of feints and fakes. Throws some single strikes though. He likes to sit down on his punches and really get a lot into him, but makes him a little predictable. With a guy like Frankie, he should be able to avoid a lot of that. He has a lot of power, 8 wins by knockout, excellent chin. We saw Jeremy Stephens tag him a number of times with big shots, and it did. He was hurt, but obviously didn't step back that much. He throws some crazy capoeira strikes. Will take some risks, which can cost him positionally, but still it can be effective and really throw an opponent off. In that Stephens matchup, which was his last fight, he was a little bit overconfident, I thought, and didn't respect Stephens as much as he should have, was getting tagged a little bit, and it seemed to take a little of his aggression away as the fight progressed on, because the damage he was, absorbing. Obviously didn't knock him out or stun him to the point where Stephens had a chance to finish, but still you saw Cub back up just a hair. Frankie's volume is going to be the key to his success in the feet. Cub has to get in and out, back him up with power, and you really get that respect, but I don't think he can match Frankie in the overall volume, especially if Frankie can put it on opponents. On the ground, Frankie, an NCAA Division I wrestler, BJJ black belt. But for Cub, judo and BJJ black belt, so he's very good as well as on the mat. Submission, major edge to Swanson. 7 wins overall by submission, just 3 for Frankie. But also keep in mind, Cub's been submitted 3 times, most recently by Ricardo Lamas. That preceded this massive run back in his significance. For Frankie, though, almost a 1 more takedown per fight than Cub Swanson, so certainly an edge there. 13% better takedown defense, which also shows up there. I think it's just overall Frankie focuses more on defense than Cub Swanson, which is significant. Cub was taken down multiple times by Jeremy Stephens. Dennis Siver took him down. Dustin Poirier. Even Ross Pearson took him down 3 times. So certainly he can be put on his mat. Now, he doesn't score a lot of takedowns in response, which can cost him the scorecards, but he's very crafty on the ground and can attack off his back and really be a handful. He swept Dennis Siver and eventually put him in a bad position there. Frankie Edgar, though, was able to survive working in the guard of Charles Oliveira, which is pretty darn impressive. And that's something, so I don't see Cub catching him off his back. Cub also has to attempt, I guess he's talked about attempt strikes, which will cost him takedowns. If Frankie can avoid and then counter the position and land a takedown, that's going to be huge. I think Frankie should have the advantage in wrestling, which will add a massive notch in his corner as far as offensive output with the judges. Frankie, this is his 4th time at 145 pounds, so the level of comfort is certainly increasing. He should be at a point where he knows what his body needs to do to perform at its peak level, and I think that continues to help him. Experience of going 5 rounds as well for the former champion is massive versus Cub, who's going to do it for the second time, but for the first time face a guy who can really put it on you for a full 5 rounds. Not like Stevens, who is very capable, but just doesn't have that volume like Frankie or work rate. I think Frankie lands more strikes, scores more takedowns, simply outclasses Cub Swanson, so my prediction is Frankie Edgar to defeat Cub Swanson by decision. So those are my 6 main card predictions for the upcoming UFC Fight Night 57 event. I didn't take any upsets, but I was very, very close. And there are a couple fights on here that I'm absolutely going to advocate as legitimate candidates for counter bets, as I like to call them, where I picked one guy, but the other guy has a ton of value and is more than capable of pulling out the upset and worth betting. So you want to get that information, certainly buy my bet packs and look into it that way. But I'm really excited in that sense that this is going to be a darn good card. It's kind of a nice, we've had a couple cards where you've got a lot of lesser known guys. We've got a very solid card. The prelims are interesting looking. I still got to break them down as well. So certainly head over to Kamikaze Overdrive.net to check out all of them, because the panel will be predicting their fights as well. Lots of stuff coming up. We, just on a side note, we had that Now is the Time big press conference, and I love the first question out of one of the reporters' mouths was, what's your big announcement? And Dana says, basically nothing. They didn't get it done in time, so I don't know. I think this is just a promotional attempt. It could have been Brock Lesnar. Maybe that's what they were working on and trying to get him signed and ready to go. Possibly setting up Brock Lesnar for, I don't know. It's interesting enough, but I wouldn't be shocked if nothing comes of it and it just kind of disappears like all the other big announcements. But it was pretty cool seeing them have all the fighters there and showing us the schedule and talk, because there's a lot of good fights coming up. Nonetheless, a little bit of a letdown there, but either way it was worth watching if you can check the footage out. As always, though, thank you for tuning in. We've got a lot of fights ahead of us, and I got a lot of work to do. I'll talk to you guys later.